be able to make it over to dodgeball, and I'm not going to be able to make it over next Tuesday either. But I want to know all about it. So that's one of the things we're going to try and focus on today. You're going to be reporting back to me all about this dodgeball match.
Boys' underachievement in literacy is a major concern for all schools. In Wales, as with the rest of the UK, boys fall behind girls in early literacy skills, and this gap in attainment widens with age. To tackle this problem in Wales, there is a new campaign to improve boys' literacy.
You've got some ideas already, Callum. Don't let me know yet.
Barry Comprehensive School for Boys in South Wales has been recognised for their achievement in raising standards of boys' literacy.
You're going to be using your speaking and listening skills a lot in this lesson. You're going to be working together and really using your speaking and listening skills to agree what's going to make an effective match report. Your first job is going to be to work with your partner and come up with some of the ingredients. What do we need in a match report?
I was teaching my Year 7 form, who are a mixed ability group, and what we're trying to do with them is really link their writing with some real life situations so that they can see the purpose of a piece of writing. So I've tapped into the idea at the moment they're running a dodgeball competition. Our 560 officer is running that, and all the boys are involved. So I thought it'd be a nice idea to link that in with a piece of writing about match reports and get them to have a real purpose to their writing.
Okay, pen down, excellent. Okay, just hold them up, boys, and I've had a look around. Lots of you have got the score. Yeah, I don't think anyone's missed out the score, the winning score, the final score.
We very often start a lesson with a success criteria so that the boys know exactly what's expected of them that lesson, what they need to be able to do in order to be successful in a lesson. So instead of you taking in a piece of work and randomly handing it back and saying, well, it was good, it was quite good, it was okay, you can very clearly say to them, or they can do some self-assessment or peer assessment, okay, we agreed that in a match report you needed a clear headline, you needed to write in paragraphs, you needed to choose your verbs carefully. Can you read through your partner's work and say what they've done well and what they haven't?
You've got to decide in order which ones are the most important. So number 1 is the thing you think is the most important, and number 5 is the thing you think is the least, and you decide your order.
Instead of like having it on your phone and throwing it in your minutes,
you can write on these sheets, boys.
What's your thing? Tell about, I don't know, because you need to know what's good.
I try and build in a lot of time where they can talk to their partners or they can work in groups before they're asked to respond to me or before they're asked to start a task. I think letting them talk about what they're doing is an absolutely vital part of the lesson. All too often, I think we set them a task and then expect them to sit in silence and start working on it. It's not something that we would want to do. And lots of the evidence shows that boys in particular need to talk through what they're about to have to do before they start doing it. But that part of social interaction also helps you manage the class because they will talk anyway. So you building it into your lesson and telling them to talk for 5 minutes and come up with an answer is the only sensible way of doing it.
The strategies used in this English department are applicable in Welsh medium, bilingual and primary schools.
Has anyone got one thing that they think is a really good addition that I've missed out when I've put those lists together? You've added an extra one, you talk to your partners about an extra one. Bradley?
An exciting and bold headline to make the reader want to see that headline to carry on reading.
We work very hard at linking their reading and writing together. I think it's very important that the boys have got a model for what you're expecting them to write. They like to have something fairly tangible, and often a written task without very clear guidelines or frameworks can be quite intangible, and they need to have fairly clear guidelines to know what they need to achieve.
I just like cool to write about, like, say, adventure type stuff.
I like writing about through stories, like you see through other people's eyes from like birth and then like through their lives.
I would like writing about made-up stories, like fictional things, because anything can really happen.
Well, I like writing about like fantasies and like supernatural things.
I enjoy the creative writing because I have like a really creative mind. I like making stuff up on spots.
I like to write about like, I don't know what I like to write about.
I've got a fictional match report here. from one of the Harry Potter books. John, can you start us off, and then I'll ask some other volunteers. Excellent, see you all volunteering. Thank you, boys.
Reading out loud is something that a lot of people think, you know, the boys aren't going to want to do that, they'll be too self-conscious. They're actually come up from primary school more often than not quite confident about reading aloud. The idea with it is to be fairly sensitive, so if you've got a longer passage, you'll maybe choose a stronger reader and allow the less able reader a short passage so that they're engaged in the lesson, and of course they've practiced their fluency. But actually the silent reading, or they're reading through something on their own, they don't engage with half as much as when they get to read it aloud.
Libraries in Wales play a key role in the campaign to improve boys' literacy. Today at Aberkenfig Library near Bridgend, football poet Crispin Thomas is visiting boys from Bryn Teg Comprehensive School.
OK, it's called Football Stuff. It's not too powerful at the back, is it? This is a poem about football stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I've had enough. Stuff about wages and transfer fees. Stuff about the newspaper saying what they please. Stuff, stuff, stuff. I'm talking about football stuff. I said stuff, stuff, stuff. I'm talking about football stuff.
We received a grant to work with boys aged 12 to 14. So we had to put in place then a project that would attract boys, would motivate boys.
Use up to 7 syllables to tell me why is football so popular, so big, so expensive, so enormous. Why does everybody go to it?
You can play with your friends.
You can play it with your friends. It's brilliant.
You know, if their parents don't bring them into libraries from a young age, they might never come across the door of a library. So we try and encourage schools to bring them in for class visits or for events. We'll have authors, visiting authors, storytellers, any kind of activity that will bring them into the library, perhaps with their school.
So this is a haiku. Can somebody just read out the first page of their haiku?
A ball into a net.
The fact that he's talking about football makes them forget it's poetry, you know. They might be a bit turned off if they thought they were going to be having to write poems, you know, but the fact that it was football is something they were interested in, and I think that's the key with boys, is finding something they're interested in, and hopefully then that they will think, well, I can read about that, I can find out about that, and that will encourage them to read.
Hitting a ball with your foot.
Hitting it with your foot.
Try to stock the kinds of books that will attract them, and reading at all levels as well. You know, yes, there are some lads who are struggling with their reading, so we try to have books that have got what we call a sort of high interest, but perhaps a lower reading age, so that, yeah, they can find that, yeah, I can read this book.
My favourite book is usually Anthony Horowitz books.
Anything really. I like mostly non-fiction because I like to learn things.
I mainly like Star Wars novels like The Adventures of Lando Calrissian.
Football magazines.
My favourite book is about Liverpool 2009.
Probably like the Harry Potter books. They're quite like mysterious and like just fun to read.
Wayne Rooney's biography, because he's my favourite football player.
I like autobiographies. I like reading like about what they've what happened in their life.
Guinness Book of Records, 2009.
Probably the Harry Potter series, because I just love like imaginary places.
Back in the classroom, the pupils are looking at the different voices in the poem Dear Mam by Penny Windsor.
What we're going to do is we're going to think about what's really going on, what people are saying in this poem, what Mam and Sean are saying to each other without words. Mam, disco at the ranks, Dana Kate, is this okay? P.S. Can I have my pocket money? Sean, please take dog out. I think being a single-sex school, we're quite lucky in that we can really select materials that we know are going to be of interest to boys, and we can tailor our teaching strategies to reflect the boys' needs. So, for example, chunking things up into shorter activities, introduce an element of competition and challenge in reading tasks and writing tasks, and also you know, really focusing on what boys enjoy. I want you to have a go at reading this poem together, each of you taking a different voice. And I want you to think about what voice you would hear. Okay, when you read the poem, what do you hear? So think about your tone of voice. Something that we're quite keen on doing here is to actually allow pupils to speak through their text before they're asked to write it. So maybe prepare a bullet point plan or an outline or a mind map in advance, then talk to the partner about it, and then actually to start writing it once they've had plenty of opportunity to discuss their ideas, tend to be more confident at speaking and listening than at writing.
Mam, broke
bottle of wine. Sorry. Smells lovely. Gareth called. I said no. More spot cream, please, and gel. Dogs weren't allowed.
Getting the boys to role play really got them motivated there. There was a challenge. They knew somebody was going to be picked, so you know they all wanted to have a go at really practicing, focusing on that to have a chance of doing it, and then improving their speaking and listening skills at the same time, hopefully learning to project their voices, having that confidence.
See you soon. Love, Shan. Love, Mum.
Lovely boys.
I think one of the main problems with boys' literacy is that they perhaps don't see reading and writing as valuable skills, and I think there's a lack of male role models really in actually showing that this is a manly activity. I think boys often think this is reading is something that girls do.
To challenge stereotypes to reading, the school regularly holds a Real Men Read Day. Today, Mr Hutton, the PE teacher, is guest speaker in tutorial.
All right, lads, when I was your age, I enjoyed reading, but a lot of the time I got bored by reading the same old things. So my English teacher saw this, and he said, there's lots of different things you can read that are interesting. Today I'm going to read you a little bit of my favourite player. It's called Alan Shearer. Has anyone heard of Alan Shearer?
Yeah.
The greatest number 9 of all time, the greatest centre forward of all time. Often it's been suggested that I'm very single-minded, even bloody-minded individual. I wouldn't argue with that. As a striker, you have to be firm, determined and focused totally on your goals.
We started the Real Men Read initiative a couple of years ago. And it was first of all put in place for World Book Day. I'd seen a lot of literature about getting famous rugby players in and doing some assemblies, etc. And it struck me that really some of our more positive male role models were teachers in our own school that boys maybe wouldn't associate with reading.
I've always stuck firmly to those ideals during my life, and not just on the pitch.
We had a strategy where I approached all the male members of staff and asked them if they'd like to come into tutorials, Year 7 initially, for 20 minutes and talk about something that they were currently reading or a book that they'd enjoyed reading as a child, and really just spread the word that everyone's reading and they enjoy it.
Thank you very much for coming in to do that, Mr Hutton. That's excellent.
Motivating boys to read is one of the big problems, really, that I think, you know, if you tell them they're reading, they can often see that as a punishment rather than a reward. So we really try and encourage boys to see reading as a reward.
You are going to have your first 5-10 minutes reading time. Very nice to see lots of you have brought in your own book.
One of the things that we encourage is for them to have with them a private reading book, and we give them real choice and ownership of that they can bring in Match magazine, Guinness Book of Records, or the novel that they're reading at home. There's no right or wrong thing to be reading.
The English department are very proactive in tackling literacy. I think we're aware that it's our responsibility in a way to ensure that our pupils are able to read and write effectively as soon as possible.
English is actually the best performing core subject at the moment in the school, which would seem to be against a national trend. And I think it's because we're so aware of it being an issue that we've got so many strategies in place, and as an English department we work together with the whole school and with the senior management team to make sure that we're doing everything we can to counter that trend.